In the dim glow of a hospital room, where the sterile beep of monitors pierced the silence like accusations, tech-mobile Alexander Voss lay motionless on his bed, his body a battlefield scarred by a rare, aggressive cancer. The surgery had been a success, or so the doctors said, but as he stared at the ceiling, a crushing weight settled on his chest. Not from the pain, but from the anonymous letter clutched in his trembling hand. "Your life was worth every penny I scraped together," it read, signed only with a grateful soul. Alexander's fortune could buy empires, yet someone penniless had saved him. Tears blurred his vision as the truth dawned. The donor was no stranger, but the quiet watchman from his childhood estate, a man he'd long forgotten in his climb to billions. How could a forgotten act of cruelty from his past lead to this boundless mercy? Alexander Voss had always been a man defined by absence. Born into modest means in a crumbling suburb of Chicago, he lost his parents young, his mother to a hit-and-run that was never solved, his father to the bottle that followed. At 12, he was shuttled into foster care, a system that chewed up dreams and spat out survivors. Isolation became his armor. He learned early that vulnerability was a luxury for the weak. By 18, he was on his own, scraping by on odd jobs while tinkering with computers in a dingy garage. His breakthrough came at 25, a revolutionary app that streamlined global logistics, turning him into a billionaire overnight. But wealth didn't fill the voids. It amplified them. Alexander built walls, literal ones around his sprawling estate, and metaphorical ones around his heart. He had no family, no close friends. His days were a blur of boardrooms and acquisitions, his nights haunted by the ghosts of abandonment. Enter Raj Patel, the watchman at Alexander's estate for over a decade. Raj was a widower in his late 50s, his face etched with lines from years of labor under the sun. He had immigrated from India 20 years ago, chasing the American dream for his young wife and infant daughter, Priya. But tragedy struck early. His wife succumbed to untreated diabetes, leaving him to raise Priya alone in a tiny apartment on the city's outskirts. Poverty was their constant companion. Raj worked double shifts as a security guard, his calloused hands a testament to nights spent patrolling gates while Priya studied by flashlight to avoid the electric bill. Grief clung to him like a shadow. He spoke little, smiled less, but his eyes held a quiet wisdom, a belief in karma that kept him going. One day, the world turns, he'd whisper to Priya during their sparse dinners of rice and lentils. Their paths crossed subtly at first. Alexander, in his rare visits to the estate, barely noticed Raj, just another faceless employee ensuring his privacy. But Raj saw more. He watched the billionaire's solitary figure pacing the manicured lawns at dusk, heard the rumors of Alexander's health woes whispered among staff. When Alexander collapsed one evening during a routine check-in, it was Raj who found him, calling the ambulance with steady hands despite his own exhaustion. The diagnosis was grim. A tumor requiring experimental surgery costing over $1 million. Alexander's insurance covered most, but a critical shortfall loomed. Experimental treatments weren't fully reimbursable, and his pride wouldn't let him beg for charity. Unbeknownst to anyone, Raj made a choice born of pure compassion. He'd been saving every spare cent for Priya's college fund, dreaming of her becoming a doctor to heal the wounds his wife couldn't. But seeing Alexander's isolation mirrored his own grief, a man rich in gold but poor in connections. No one should die alone, Raj thought, remembering his wife's final hours. He liquidated everything, sold his late wife's gold necklace, pawned his watch, emptied the college jar. Anonymously, he wired the funds to the hospital, labeling it as a community donation. It was a small act in the grand scheme, but to Raj, it was everything. Priya protested when she found out, tears streaming as she hugged her father. "Papa, that's my future." But Raj held her close. "Kindness is the only future that matters, Beta. It comes back when we least expect." Alexander recovered slowly, his body mending while his mind raced. The anonymous gift gnawed at him. Who would sacrifice so much for a stranger like him? He hired investigators, but they hit dead ends. Meanwhile, Raj's life unraveled further. Without the savings, Priya's college dreams faded. She took a job at a diner, her bright eyes dimming with resentment toward the world that demanded so much from the poor. Raj's health declined too, Years of overwork catching up in aches and fatigue. Isolation deepened. Neighbors whispered about his foolish generosity, and Priya's occasional outbursts echoed the abandonment Raj felt after his wife's death. Yet, in quiet moments, Raj found solace in prayer, hoping his act had sparked some light in Alexander's darkened world. Struggled to find their parallel lives. Alexander, back in his empire, felt a hollow victory. Board meetings rang empty. His wealth mocked him. One night, drowning in insomnia, he revisited old estate logs. A name jumped out. Raj Patel, the watchman who'd found him that fateful evening. Cross-referencing bank traces, the puzzle clicked. The donation traced to a pawn shop Raj frequented. Shock rippled through Alexander. Why him? Why this man he'd overlooked? The revelation cracked his armored heart, stirring memories of his own lost parents. For the first time in years, hope flickered, a chance to repay, to connect. But how? Raj had vanished from the estate, fired in a cost-cutting spree Alexander himself had approved months earlier. The billionaire's search began, a quest through the city's underbelly, facing the poverty he'd escaped. Each dead and amplified his grief, a mirror to Raj's silent sacrifices. Yet, in the struggle, Alexander felt alive, pulled from isolation toward something real. The discovery hit Alexander like a tidal wave. Poring over faded records in his opulent study, he uncovered the truth. Raj Patel, the unassuming watchman, had pawned heirlooms and drained his life savings to bridge the surgical gap. Alexander's investigators confirmed it with quiet efficiency: bank wires, pawn receipts, even a heartfelt note from the shop owner about Raj's tears as he handed over his wife's necklace. For a good cause, Raj had said. Alexander sat stunned, the weight of ingratitude crushing him. He'd approved Raj's layoff without a second thought, part of a broader efficiency drive that axed non-essential staff. Now, that decision haunted him. How had he become so detached, so blind to the humanity around him? Grief for his wasted years surged, mingling with compassion for Raj's unseen battles. This wasn't just repayment, it was redemption. Driven by a newfound urgency, Alexander tracked Raj to a rundown apartment block on the city's fringes. The building reeked of despair, peeling paint, flickering lights, echoes of arguments from thin walls. Knocking on the door, his tailored suit felt absurd amid the poverty. Priya answered, her eyes wary, exhaustion etched on her young face. "What do you want?" she snapped, recognizing the billionaire from tabloids. Alexander stammered, "I need to see your father. He saved my life." Priya's defenses cracked. Tears welled as she led him inside. Raj lay on a threadbare couch, weakened by a recent flu, his once sturdy frame frail. Seeing Alexander, Raj's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with quiet recognition. "Sir, you're well," he whispered, a faint smile breaking through. The conversation unfolded like a dam bursting. Alexander poured out his story, his orphaned childhood, the isolation of success, the anonymous letter that shattered his world. Raj listened, nodding, sharing his own tales, the joy of his wife's laughter, the grief of her loss, the daily grind to give Priya a shot at more. "I saw you alone that night, sir. Like I was after my Mira passed. No one deserves that." Alexander wept openly, the first tears in decades. "Why me? You gave everything." Raj shrugged. "Kindness isn't a debt, it's a circle. It finds its way back." In that cramped room, barriers crumbled. Alexander offered help, reinstate Raj's job, fund Priya's education, but Raj demurred. "Not for pity, sir. For friendship." What started as gratitude evolved into connection. Alexander visited weekly, sharing meals, stories. He learned Hindi phrases from Priya, helped Raj with errands. The billionaire's isolation thawed, replaced by the warmth of chosen family. Word spread subtly at first. Alexander, ever the innovator, decided on a public gesture, not for show, but to amplify the ripple. At a high-profile tech conference, before thousands and streamed worldwide, he took the stage. Dressed simply, he recounted the tale, the surgery, the secret savior, the watchman who'd given all without expectation. "Raj Patel taught me that true wealth isn't in banks, it's in hearts," he said, voice cracking. Pulling Raj and Priya on stage, he announced a foundation in their honor, scholarships for children of essential workers, funded by his billions. But the melting moment came when Alexander knelt, hugging Raj publicly. "Thank you, brother," he whispered. The audience erupted in applause, tears flowing freely. Social media exploded. #Watchman hero trended. Stories of similar kindnesses poured in. Raj's act inspired a wave. Donations surged to poverty funds. Strangers reconnected with forgotten souls. Full Circle arrived unexpectedly. Priya, now in med school on Alexander's scholarship, specialized in oncology, vowing to heal like her father couldn't for her mother. Raj's health improved with better care. He returned to the estate not as watchman, but as advisor, his wisdom guiding Alexander's philanthropy. Alexander found love too. A quiet relationship with a fellow survivor met through the foundation. Struggles lingered. Old griefs resurfaced in therapy sessions. Societal divides challenged their bond. But hope prevailed, each act of compassion building resilience. Raj's small gift had transformed not just one life, but many, proving kindness's boundless reach. In the end, as Alexander stood with Raj on the estate's lawn at sunset, watching Priya graduate via video call, he marveled at the change. "You saved more than my body," he said. Raj smiled. "We saved each other." In a world often shadowed by division and despair, this story reminds us that empathy is the bridge that connects isolated souls, love the force that heals unseen wounds, and humanity's greatest strength lies in the quiet acts of kindness that ripple outward, transforming lives and mending hearts forever. Moral of the story: true wealth is measured not by what we accumulate, but by the compassion we give and the connections we forge in return.